So what's been going on with BRICs? I haven't shared an update, and while I have been paying attention to news around different economic alliances around the world, in this video, I'm going to talk about what's going on with it. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Ashley. On my channel, Ashley in Africa, I share my experience of living and doing business here on the continent of Africa, specifically here in South Africa. And the reason why BRICS matters is because I've been paying attention to economic alliances that have been created for the liberalization of global trade and developing countries, right? And so why does this matter? Well, I'm gonna get into it. And if this type of content resonates with you, please be sure to like this video, share it with someone who finds value, and subscribe to the channel. So one of my most popular videos that I've ever done was on the basics that you need to know about BRICS. And for those that don't know, BRICS is an economic alliance, now known as BRICS Plus, is an economic alliance between the countries of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And now the plus is, that's right, I need to know the plus because we got some new countries, and those countries are Argentina, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Ethiopia, Egypt, and Iran. So those are the plus countries that were recently added on at the BRICS summit that took place last year, August 2023, here in South Africa. And yeah, nobody has really been talking about it. I did release a video around the currency almost being ready, which was shared by some economists via the Russian economic system, and people were feeling a certain way about that. But the reality is these economic alliances are happening globally. And why are they happening? Well, because countries want to develop, and they want to develop without the United States dollar being the reserve currency. So what does that mean? Well, America is under fire globally. I mean, not to mention there are several conflicts happening with the physical, financial, and political support of countries. And people aren't happy about it. And what does this also mean? It means that the money that the United States has been able to print over centuries is going to not matter as much anymore, right? Because countries want to be able to trade in their own currency. So there are several economic alliances. And I think when people heard me talk about BRICS, they assumed that I was just here for the fall of the US dollar. And that isn't it. I'm an American. Most of my income and my investments are in dollars. Not all of them are, because I do believe that globalization is happening. It is here, it is now, and it makes sense to diversify. If you're gonna diversify your income, if you're gonna diversify your portfolio, you should also be diversifying your investments, your location, your residencies, etc., etc. And so the reason why I find it so important to know about BRICS is because it opened the door to understanding economic alliances that are happening all over the world. And what does this mean? It's about trade. It's about countries being able to develop. And these are already happening, and several are popping up. So we've got them on the continent, and they look like, the EAC, the Eastern Africa Commission. Even the African Union is essentially an economic alliance. And while these things take time to build, because you're dealing with cultural differences, you're dealing with, civil differences, you're dealing with political differences, religious differences, and people want to dismiss these developments based on the fact that the US has always been. But the reality is empires shift, empires rise, and empires fall. We're seeing what's happening in the UAE and the development of all of these, UAE countries and cities, and all of these UAE cities and regions, and the fact that these countries are becoming some of the most desirable destinations for business today because of their economic privilege and their economic position that they've held and power globally. right? So developing nations, like I said, they're over the dollar as the global reserve currency, and they want to do something different. People are already doing it. Countries like Tanzania are trading with countries like India using their shilling to the rupee. You know, this is happening. This is not only just happening on the continent, but it's happening intercontinentally as well as intracontinentally. And it matters because the US dollar is losing its strength and its power. There was a recent article published in the New York Times, I'll link it below in the description, of a famous economist who on his last research paper, he is predicting that this is going to happen. And while, markets are up and things look good, the reality is that countries are saying we want to be able to trade with who we want to trade with and how we want to trade. And that means removing one central currency that has been controlling these countries. And it's happening. And so that power dynamic of printing money has pissed countries off, and it's leading to the decline in that influence and impact, right? So foreign military and neo-colonial forces are being broken down. We're seeing it happen in some of the Francophone countries here in Africa, on the west coast of Africa. And, the EU, the UK, you've got these countries coming into the continent apologizing for what they've done. Names, roads, countries are being changed. This is a slow process, but progress is a slow process. And America and the UK, although they are not being as diligent as they could be in just being authentic and being transparent in what they've done as colonizers globally, and people that have committed the ultimate levels of genocide on the indigenous people of their land, they're not too far behind in this array and in this breakdown, right? And so the thing is that also media is becoming decentralized. Media and information now, with social media and everyone having a voice, and media not being able to completely eradicate the truth, more and more will be willing to come out and share their truths, revealing their truths about things that have been hidden for centuries. We're seeing videos of what is happening and the horrible, treacherous nature of the genocide of Palestinians. And these things cannot be hidden from the media anymore. And so because of that, we need to pay attention to these economic alliances and to these other folks and understand why these things are happening, right? And so, as I mentioned, my premise in releasing that first video was because I just felt like people needed to know what was happening, because as Americans, there is a clear constructed bubble that Americans live in, not knowing what's happening globally, so that Americans stay focused on working, consuming, repeat. And so understanding what geopolitical economic alliances mean and look like exposes you to everything. They are surging where neighborhoods, so they're surging, these economic alliances. So it's not just BRICS. While BRICS is this big powerhouse that made the news, there are smaller economic alliances with neighboring and like-minded countries that are finding more value in collaboration versus separating, which is essentially what was not done by them. It was done by colonizers, right? And so measures and strategies need to be put in place. Are any of these entities perfect? Absolutely not. But are they a sign that this one global powerhouse is going to remain in power forever? Or that time's ticking? Right? So let me know what you think about this. Leave me a comment below if you have an interest in learning more about this topic and you love when I cover it. Also let me know. I'm happy to continue to share and share some of the updates that I get. And I've gotta admit, it's hard to really uncover and recognize which source is accurate. So I recommend that you do your research as well. And Get strategic, start understanding what the global landscape looks like. And if you've ever had an interest to do business on the continent of Africa, the time is now. And the trends that I am seeing, no one is paying attention to. We talk all about this in the Africa Investors Academy, which is a community of like-minded entrepreneurs and investors that are growing their businesses and building new businesses here on the continent. And if you want to share in community with like minds, we'd love to have you in the community. So the link is below and in the pinned comment for you to join us. We'd love to have you. And until the next video, I'll see you soon.